Okay, so folks, lots of stuff happening in the world. I think Bakhmut is finally turning out to be a cul-de-sac for Russians. Wagner is kind of moving out and is in trouble. Not enough armaments being supplied, but I guess maybe they don't have any, right? Britain has decided to supply long-range missiles to Ukraine and Kyiv. That's going to be a game changer. But let's see what's happening in our region, West Asia, essentially West Asia, South Asia, a little bit of Southeast Asia, to see the lurking instability in this region, basically coming out of Pakistan, our neighbor, right? It's in trouble. It's in deep, deep trouble, right? And the blowback, the impact, whether we like it or not, through terrorism or otherwise, may come to India, or it might have a positive side to it when the current government, including the army, which has now been shown up by Imran Khan and his people, come out to try and somehow build, repair bridges with India, right? So the three interlocking issues roiling Islamabad, economic being the big one, the political uncertainty being the big one. The key is, right, everybody has to understand the Frankenstein monster of the terror, of extremism that was fed by the army to essentially to take on India or Afghanistan, keep Afghanistan in place, is now beginning to eat its master. Of course, it started all back with Zia, right? When he thought it was a great opportunity to get the Americans in to throw out the USSR, and money started coming in, weapons started coming in, and corruption started taking unheard proportions in Pakistan. I remember going to the US in '82, and I can tell you Pakistan enjoyed pivotal position. India was not even anywhere in sight. We were derided in Washington DC, because that's where I studied. Right now, Pakistan, these were richer, better off. They were preening all over the place. But you know how times change, right? Because of this monster that Zia fed is eventually eating the hand that fed it, right? The three interlocked issues roiling Islamabad, says Tilak Deveshwar. One of them is economic, then political, then extremism, and this extreme Islam, right? He says, hence the situation is fast becoming untenable, and this is why Pakistan may be quick marching towards a meltdown. And he may not be far off from the truth. Imran arrests protesters, storm Pakistan Army headquarters, clash with police. And as Avinash Paliwal writes, no good choices. Pakistan must choose between populists with autocratic tendencies, that's Imran, and a corrupt military. From the historically skewed civil-military relations to strategic mistakes such as sponsoring regional terrorism or managing democracy by selecting and rejecting prime ministers at will, the current state of play has multiple births. Given the gestation period of this crisis, the most pressing question, unsurprisingly, is not why or even why now. It is, as many are asking, what now? After all, the army, unsure about former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, curated Khan's rise in 2018. That Khan will become a Frankenstein monster similar to the other proxy, the Afghan Taliban, was sadly lost on the generals. They don't seem to have many brains, right? Anyway, right? Pakistan army had it coming. Decades of meddling in politics has come to a boil and now may destabilize the country. Well, it is already. And what does Sham Saran write? On Pakistan, India must wait and watch. Pakistan is in turmoil, but once the dust settles, Islamabad may reach out to New Delhi due to geopolitical compulsions. India should be ready to respond positively, though cautiously. And EAM had rightly said, wake up and smell the coffee. 370 is history. EAM to Bhutto, it most certainly is. And you know, the biggest loser in this whole game, folks, is going to be China. It's expended so much of its capital on Pakistan and Afghanistan. But remember, many moons ago I pointed out, mercantilism and uneducated Islam just do not mix. It's like oil and water, and eventually this was going to blow up. Rebels attack China-backed energy project in Myanmar days after FM visit, and this is our region, China, blowback, Pakistan, blowback possibility in Myanmar, Bangladesh too, right? Maldives already happened. India still to accept regime, but Taliban appoints envoy. Taliban's putting its best foot forward. What's going to happen, we don't know. But Taliban itself finds itself in trouble with what's happening with Tehreek-e-Taliban, which is the Pakistani Taliban, right? And here we go ahead. Better connectivity, respecting sovereignty should be priority, says Jai Shankar in Dhaka. And the big event happening is Turkey. Erdogan and rival both claim early poll leads. None of likely. The breaking news was Erdogan got 49% and the opposition got 44%. But you have to have above 50% to declare victory. So now it's a runoff. Where do the 7% balance go? Opposition does have a chance, though I don't think very much. But what was the other big thing that was happening in Asia? Doval and Saudi to discuss US rail link plan for West Asia. Project to use Indian rail expertise, connect West and South Asia via sea. Then, in a first, NSAs of US, India and UAE hold meet in Saudi. God, groundbreaking. Especially after everybody went to town about what China is doing, how they bought Iran and Saudi together. That was not going to work though, I think, right? So here is something that you need to understand by C. Raja Mohan. A new Arabian tale. Seizing opportunities in the Gulf would require long overdue modernization of Delhi's strategic discourse. What he says is, the new US-India warmth on the Gulf is a major departure from the traditional approaches to the Middle East in both India and the US. In India, one of the entrenched principles of the Nehruvian foreign policy was the proposition that Delhi must either oppose Washington or keep its distance in the Middle East. The self-imposed ideological taboo was broken with the formation of a four-nation grouping unveiled in October 2021 called I2U2 that brought the US, India, Israel and the UAE together. He says the US is not the only Western power that India is beginning to work with in the Gulf. France has emerged as an important partner in the Gulf and Western Indian Ocean. India now has a trilateral dialogue with Abu Dhabi and Paris. So Diego Garcia and reunion are critical bases that India uses for its navy. Okay, what do we have that? Pakistan's continued strategic decline makes it a lot less relevant to the changing geopolitics of the Gulf. Pakistan losing again. To make matters more complicated, Pakistan has drifted too close to China. As the US-China confrontation sharpens, Islamabad is tempted to align with China and Russia in the region. That was Imran Khan's doing, right? As the intra-regional international relations of the Arabian Peninsula poise for momentous change, India has inevitably become part of the new regional calculus. Contrary to the widespread perception, the US is not about to abandon the Middle East, but it certainly is recalibrating its regional strategy. In a major speech last week in Washington, US NSA Jack Sullivan highlighted several elements of the new US approach. Viewed from Delhi, two of them stand out. One was about building new partnerships, including with Delhi, and the other was about integration of the Arabian Peninsula into India and the world. This is where the rail link comes in, right? And India has all the expertise and all the steel, right? Yet Beijing is nowhere near displacing Washington as the principal external actor in the Gulf. Seen in conjunction with Britain, the Anglo-American connections to the Arabian Peninsula dates to the late 16th century. The Anglo-Saxon powers have no desire to roll over and cede the Gulf to Beijing. Beijing is a puppet. It's going to get stamped all over in the Middle East. Let me just tell you, they just don't know how to deal with the Arabs or the Arab world historically. The story, however, is only partly about China and the US. It is really about the rising power of the Arabian Peninsula, especially Saudi Arabia and UAE. The Gulf kingdoms have accumulated massive financial capital and embarked on an ambitious economic transformation that will reduce their dependence on oil over the long term. US has already given up on its dependence on oil, right? India now needs to be able to contribute to this millions and billions of dollars being spent in Saudi Arabia. The story is also about India and Arabia. Emerging Arabia opens enormous new possibilities for India, India's economic growth, and Delhi's productive improvement in promoting connectivity and security within Arabia and between it and the abutting regions, including Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Mediterranean, and the subcontinent. This is the important part, folks. Here again we say, for India's growth and Delhi's productive involvement in promoting connectivity and security within Arabia and between it and abutting regions is the critical part that India is going to play. And let me just tell you, as Air India develops and evolves into a large airline and India develops into an aviation hub, this is another critical zone for the Middle East because a lot of their players are dependent on feeder traffic coming out of India. But then you have this government bans import of 50 kg apples. Iran, UAE may be hit, and you really don't want to do this and rupture these relationships. Sometimes you do these free trade agreements, you know these apples are going to come or it's going to hurt some of our farmers, but knee-jerk reactions are really not good for foreign policy. On the other hand, you should be encouraging Indian apples to get out there into the world. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.